Happy Independence Day. Welcome back. And if you're listening for the first time, welcome to episode 7 of The Real Situation, where we give you a taste of Jamaican politics. I'm your host, Melanie Byfield, and in this series, we're focusing on Jamaica's journey to becoming a republic. Today, Jamaica is celebrating 62 years of political independence and currently on a road to becoming a republic in order to secure independence 100%, executive, legislative, and hopefully judicial. Jamaica's been on a mission for self-determination from a long time. And if you've been watching the Olympic Games in Paris, this journey, it come in like a relay. The likes of Taki and Sam Sharp came out the blocks fighting for freedom from slavery, sacrificing their lives before it was eventually secured in 1834, which we just celebrated for emancipation, right, on August 1. In 1840, Paul Bogle and William George Gordon continued the race, sacrificing their lives fighting against political, economic, and racial injustices, as well as the criminalization of religious and civil freedoms, which black people bore the brunt of. The 20th century looked to leaders like Alexander Bedwood, Reverend Dr. Robert Love, and the Right Honourable Marcus Garvey to keep up the pace and challenge the racial hierarchy, handing the baton off to William Grant, Alexander Bustamante, Norman Manley, and the hundreds of workers who carried out serious strikes and disturbances against economic conditions, drastically reduced wages, unemployment, underemployment, and health condition issues during the 1938 Labour Rebellion. Norman Manley and Alexander Bustamante took us to independence in 1962. So who takes the baton next? Who's going to be our hero that'll run the next part of this race for Jamaica? Land we love. Because the race isn't over. Jamaica is on the road to becoming a republic. As I said, Jamaica's been on a mission of self-determination from a long time. But we're going to take a sprint back to 1962 to see how exactly Jamaica became independent, and it was a sprint. So the more serious movements happened with the Federation of the West Indies. Jamaica joined in January 3rd, 1958. And what was the primary objective? It was more so for Britain. Britain was near bankruptcy towards the end of 1940, and they needed to reduce the costs of administration for the various islands because they were struggling financially. It wasn't a very good relationship for Norman Manley. It quickly became very unworkable. And he basically refused to concede to having this federation control Jamaica's economic policies. Bustamante, he started campaigning for Jamaica's withdrawal pretty quick, and was moving towards Jamaica securing its own independence. How did Manley respond? He offered the people an opportunity to see if they wanted Jamaica to stay in the Federation or not. So on September 19, 1961, a referendum was held, and 54% of Jamaicans voted to leave the West Indies Federation. That actually formally took place a little later on in February 1962. But pretty much after that referendum, Jamaica started pushing for its own independence. Now, the timeline that follows is Usain Bolt fast. Just over a week later, on September 28, 1961, Manley led a delegation to London looking for Jamaica's independence, and he went back again in October. Within a week, there was a resolution in the House of Representatives to move for proposals for a constitution of Jamaica. A committee was created in the House of Representatives, and what was their job? To prepare proposals to take effect on independence. So who was involved in that committee? And I'm going to tell you a little incy bit about them as well. So we had Norman Manley, who was the chairman. This is the Constitution Committee, right? Will Isaacs, he went on to be PNP Prime Minister of Labour in the 1970s. There was Florizel Glasspool. He went on to be one of Jamaica's longest-serving Governor-Generals. Vernon Arnett, he acted as Minister of Finance from 1959 to 1962. Iris King. Iris King became the first female mayor of Kingston. But not only did she make history in Jamaica, she also made history around the world. She was the first black woman to be elected a mayor in the whole world. Who represented the opposition? Alexander Bustamante. He went on to become the first Prime Minister of Jamaica, of course. Donald Sangster, he was the second Prime Minister. Only for a couple of months, though. He died suddenly. He was Prime Minister from February 22nd, 1967 to April 11, 1967. D.C. Tavares, he was Minister of Housing from 62 to 67. R.C. Lightbourne, he's best remembered for composing the music for Jamaica's national anthem. J.P. Giles, he served as Minister of Agriculture and Lands from 1962 to 1967. There was also a legislative council that was appointed. It was a bipartisan committee, and it was made up of Douglas Fletcher. He served as a chairman of the JBC. David Corr, long-serving politician. He also served as Minister of Legal Affairs and Attorney General. And Rudolph Burke, President of the Jamaica Agricultural Society between 44 and 62. Those were the PNP committee members. JLP committee members were N.N. Ashenheim. He was a member of the Legislative Council from 59 to 62. And Edward Seaga, who would go on to be Prime Minister. He actually entered public service in 1959 when he was elected to the Legislative Council. Michael Manley also chaired a joint committee that drafted the Order in Council that we know to be the Constitution. There were also two subcommittees that were appointed. Glasspool and Ashenheim made up one, whose job it was to consider any submissions by the general public. And David Corr, Ashenheim, and Leslie Kundal, an Attorney General, were considering human rights. There was okay, so we're moving to January 18, 1962. And on this date, a report of the Joint Committee to the House of Representatives was made. That was a report based on the delegation who went to London to negotiate the Constitution. And things start to fly from here. A couple of days later, we had drafts of the Constitution. And on February 1, there were independence talks that took place at Lancaster House in London. Members of the People's Political Party, the PPP, actually demonstrated because they weren't invited. It was just a PNP and a JLP thing, apparently. February 9, there was an independence agreement that was signed that would then make Jamaica independent as of August 6, 1962. April 10, there was actually a general election. 72.9% of the eligible voting population voted in that election. The JLP, different to the voting numbers we have now, right? But yeah, the JLP won 26 constituencies to the PNP's 19. So Alexander Bustamante and the JLP formed the country's first government as an independent country, and Bustamante became the first prime minister. Okay, so a little fun fact. The Speaker of the House who was elected was none other than the father of former Prime Minister Bruce Golding, Mr. Tatius Golding. So pressing on. So on May 23, there was actually a bill that was presented for Jamaica's independence in the British Parliament. June 20th, the House of Representatives approved the design of the new flag, which was actually based on a country, Tanganyika, which is now known as Tanzania. It was based on those same colours. June 29, the House of Commons passed the Jamaica Independence Bill that actually needed approval from the House of Lords and royal assent before it came into effect. Little fun fact, on July 5th, it was announced that all babies born on August 6, 1962, that is between midnight of August 5, 1962 and midnight of August 6, 1962, received a silver independence spoon from the government of Jamaica, and the spoon had the name of the child engraved on it. There's actually an article in the Gleaner where a lady called Topaz Curlew is one of the 224 babies who were born on August 6, 1962. And she received a personalised spoon with her name engraved on it and Jamaica's coat of arms on the handle. The Queen didn't actually attend Jamaica's independence. It was Princess Margaret who attended on her behalf. She opened the National Stadium on August 4. That's pretty much what it was built for. And on August 6, at the stroke of midnight, Jamaica became an independent country. The Union Jack was taken down, and the Jamaican flag of black, gold, and green was hoisted in its place. Jamaica's constitution was approved by the United Kingdom and included as the second schedule of the Jamaica Constitution Order in Council 1962 under the West Indies Act 1962, granting Jamaica political independence. Serious issue which we don't want to jump over. There obviously wasn't a lot of time for public discussion. And less than 3 hours after the Joint Committee commenced its opening session, there was a decision taken that Jamaica should be a constitutional monarchy with a bicameral legislature. So on August 6, 1962, Jamaica became independent, but the journey wasn't complete. Right? Jamaica's independence isn't full, and decolonization isn't complete. Right now, we're in the first of 3 phases of constitutional reform. Here in phase 1, focusing on changes to fully entrenched provisions of the Constitution, and that involves removing the monarchy, transition in Jamaica from a constitutional monarchy into a constitutional republic, amending the Order in Council to become a constitution of Jamaica, a non-colonial document. So in order for that to happen, a referendum must be held, and the Jamaican electorate has to say yes or no to the proposed changes. And that's required because they are deeply entrenched. So at the moment, the baton's been dropped and there's no consensus between the political parties. Mark Golding, leader of the opposition, argues that Jamaica won't be fully independent while we retain the Privy Council, a colonial final court of appeal. The Caribbean Court of Justice has been put forward as a natural choice to replace the Privy Council, especially since Jamaica is a member of CARICOM and was instrumental in establishing the court and invested financially in its creation. So on July 30th, there was a reasoning that took place with Bruce Golding, and it actually makes you believe like consensus might be possible. Amongst other things, which we'll reason about the next time, he addressed the Caribbean Court of Justice and asked the legal community to undertake some critical assessment of the procedures, right? Check out its accessibility. Help us to get a better understanding of the court's reasoning. He described the Caribbean Court of Justice as the well-fat elephant in the room, and that it is. But we can't do anything about it without consensus. He did say he's impressed, though. He's read the court decisions, but he's not a legal scholar. And again, he's calling on the legal community to step in and make this work. What's his biggest concern, though? Availability. And availability meaning not travelling to the Caribbean Court of Justice, to the Privy Council, which is, of course, a concern in itself, right? Travelling to London, you have to get visa first. Cost of, your legal representation, cost of staying there, etc., right? He brought up a different type of availability. And basically, it could be an issue if a political decision is made in Britain that Jamaica can no longer use the Privy Council, because it's actually governed under an Act of 1833. So next week, the British Parliament could turn around and, without any consultation with Jamaica, decide that Jamaica is no longer permitted to use the Privy Council. From a Republican, right? From a Republican point of view, with the country being a republic, and that could be an issue. It's not like the Privy Council have ever taken weird positions before, so if this 1833 Act is changed, Jamaica could well be without an apex court. So right now the Porsche is parked up waiting on consensus. And you know what? We even possibly have 2 former prime ministers waiting for an invitation to come together and make it work. We may not have won the 100 meters, but we're bad pan relay. Our ancestors, our martyrs, many heroes, and we the people are waiting for the baton to be picked up so we can carry on this race to full independence, becoming a republic with a fully decolonized executive, legislature, and judiciary. I want to leave you with a poem that I modified slightly from last year. A happy Independence Day From me and mine to you. I'm praying that real soon we'll have an independence that's true. Let's emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, although it seems we're not quite free. King Charles III still has a say over you, and me. This country, it's magnificent. Just look around and see the amazing vegetation and beautiful Caribbean Sea. Yet we are suffering as a people, an exploited former colony. Land full of wood and water, them belly full, but we're hungry. Is this the time for us to stand up truly independent as one? Executive, legislative, and judicial freedom. Will it finally be one? We're not ignorant, I mean it. And with guidance from God above, we will be a new republic. Jamaica, 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 land we love. I hope you're continuing to enjoy the journey and looking forward to our continued travels on the road to Jamaica becoming a republic, truly independent and sovereign together. And yes, I'm confident that the broke down Porsche is going to get fixed. After all, this is sweet, sweet Jamaica. You can find this podcast on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Podcast Index, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Apple, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. If you want to reason about anything or you can't find any of the material I was talking about, you can email me on atasteofja@outlook.com. So until the next time, I thank you for supporting this podcast. Please share it with your friends and family. And again, I thank you for taking the time to listen. Happy independence. One love.